Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Congratulations to Gator Nation. Very exciting that you won the NCAA basketball tournament. Maybe someday the Florida Gators will have a football program again, too. It's funny, though, all those SEC teams who are now discovering basketball. Listen, if you join the Big Ten, you can have great basketball teams and great football teams. You'll come along. We get it. The whole country will be the Big Ten eventually. It's 5:07. Good morning. Good Tuesday to you. It's O'Connor and Company coming up at 7:05. Gordon Chang is going to talk to us about the tariffs. What do we keep saying on this program? It's the official editorial position. Don't get distracted by all the tariff talk, all the hysteria about Europe and Israel and coffee from Colombia. That's just noise. The tariff policy is really all about China, and China's taking the bait. Gordon Chang will break it down for us at 7:05. 7:35, Nick Minnock of WJLA. Just how radical is Steve Descano, the Fairfax County Commonwealth's attorney? He's pretty bad. And now he's lying about it, lying about what a victim wanted with regard to her assailant, her abusive husband. We'll get into all those details. And at 8:05, the sheriff of Frederick County, the last sane man standing in Maryland, I think, at least as far as elected officials go, Chuck Jenkins. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock, who's also rather sane, but not a man, and not nearly even close to being in Maryland, but she's with us. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
By the way, I don't want to impress you. If you want to be a man, God knows at this point you could be.
Let's
know why you would
let's
want
not
to be,
start the morning off this way.
What do you mean? People have been sending me messages on the X platform suggesting that I'm being openly hostile to you, a little too.
Oh, really?
Hostile. Yes.
You had not mentioned this to me. How nice. I love our listeners.
What do you mean, how nice? It's a lie. I'm not hostile to you.
A little bit sometimes. You're a little aggressive.
I hold you accountable sometimes for your words and actions. If you call that hostility, then fine.
God, we're going to start this show off great. Already fighting.
I am the annoying brother you never had.
Yes, you are.
Let's start the morning off great with a Supreme Court decision that came down late yesterday afternoon. Shocking, and this shouldn't be big news, but it is these days. The Supreme Court came down on the side of the Constitution, executive power, and standing legislation that has been around since, the second presidency of the United States, and against Judge Boasberg and his outrageous overreach as a little federal district judge. What is disconcerting is that the vote came down 5-4, and a lot of people were noting that Amy Coney Barrett joined the three ladies. So it was men against women. We had apparently a sexual divide on the Supreme Court based on whether the executive branch has powers or not to deport people under the Alien Enemies Act.
You know what, Larry? Actually, let's go back to what you said. I might want to be a man. Honestly. Why are women so disappointing? What is going on with women in this country? Every crazy video out there on Twitter, it's a woman. Every disappointing ruling, it's a woman. I mean, honestly.
Did you see Tim Walz did a big town hall thing in a theater somewhere in, I think it was Ohio, and they were showing this, this crowd and screaming fans packed the theater for Tim Walz, and if you look,
all white women.
It's all white boomer women.
All white, over 50. Yeah.
And it was like Tom
a little
Jones
bit chubby.
Was in the theater. They were taking off their granny panties and throwing them at the stage. Oh, Tim!
I'm telling you what.
Tell us about Beijing.
I don't want to say something provocative like, should women really vote? Okay, but I'm really starting to.
That was Julie Gunlock suggesting that we repeal the 19th Amendment, not your lovable pal Larry O'Connor.
I'm going to get fired from IWF.
Supreme Court lifts orders blocking Trump from deporting Venezuelans under Alien Enemies Act. As Stephen Miller said, the Alien Enemies Act is now in full effect. The foreign terrorists will be arrested and expelled. Which, by the way, when you use that language, seems kind of reasonable, doesn't it? There are
Well, it's
foreign
always been reasonable.
terrorists in the country illegally. The president should be able to keep us safe from them.
These are terrorist organizations. These are designated by Democrats. Okay? Democrats. They're the ones who said, these cartels are terrorist organizations. These are enormously disruptive to America. They're dangerous to American citizens. Yes. Okay. Thank you for confirming what is complete common sense at this point.
The language used to describe this is so important. SCOTUS blog, which is usually left-leaning, but they try to report things on a fact basis until you start drilling down to the fourth paragraph. Their lead is appropriate. The Supreme Court grants the Trump administration's request to continue to summarily remove non-citizens whom the government has designated as members of the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang under the Alien Enemies Act. The court lifted a pair of orders by Chief U.S. District Judge James Boasberg that had barred the government from removing non-citizens who were designated as members of TDA under Trump's March 15th executive order. When you hear the language like that, it's like, wait a second, they're non-citizens. Most of them are illegal, but even if you're a legal non-citizen, you still face deportation based on your behavior and based on your affiliations. Ask any legal immigrant to this country. There is language when you agree to be a legal resident of our country with a green card. You agree that you will not have affiliations with enemies of our nation and you will not behave in a way that inhibits the freedom and liberties of other citizens in this country. You won't be a criminal. You won't be part of a criminal gang. You won't even be affiliated with a criminal gang. If you're a non-citizen and you're cavorting with and consorting with violent criminal gangs that are deemed enemies of this nation, you face deportation. Period. You don't like that? Talk to Congress to change the laws. I've been saying this forever. There are no new laws needed. Biden ignored existing law. Trump is enforcing existing law. And this judge who tried to get in the way of it has now been spanked summarily by the Supreme Court.
Right. Or also, Larry, they could find a country that doesn't have similar rules like this. Go live there. Oh, that's right. That doesn't exist. Every country has these sorts of rules. Right? I mean, in fact, in the United States, it's much easier to live here as a foreigner.
Way more lenient. Yes.
Way more lenient. So just, again, just try to find a country that allows this. Again, they don't exist.
Well, or they can be angry at Trump because, nobody voted for that. He only ran on grocery store prices and inflation. He never said anything about this when he was running for office, about deporting illegal immigrants, especially criminals who are parts of violence gang. He never said that at rallies or in the debates or on. Oh, no, wait, that's all he talked about. That's the other thing that you'll hear from Joe and Mika. Well, people are waking up this morning and they're really regretting their vote for Donald Trump because really he only ran on inflation. He only ran on the price of milk and eggs. That's really all he ran. No, it's a lie. All of it is lies.
Yep.
This is exactly what Trump said he was going to do. He is doing exactly what his campaign promised to do. And it's exactly what the Constitution allows him to do. And there's one other aspect of this that is incredibly important. And thank God, yes, it's terrifying that it was a 5-4 decision at the Supreme Court. But there's one other aspect of this policy that is incredibly important for our immigration and for our border security and for our national security that President Trump hasn't had to say out loud very often, but the message resonates loud and clear. And we're going to get to that. And this includes that Maryland father who is so innocent and shouldn't have been deported. We're going to get to that in 60 seconds. But those 60 seconds are going to be very, critically important. It's 5:15, WMAL traffic and weather. Every 10 minutes, first on the fives with Jamie Whitten. There you go, Jamie. Critically important in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
All right, so let's break this down here once again. While you were sleeping, it was late in the afternoon, early evening, when the Supreme Court came down with a decision that smacked down Judge Boasberg, this infamous federal circuit judge who demanded that the Trump administration make a plane carrying illegal immigrant gang member terrorists to El Salvador. He demanded that the plane turn around in midair. The hubris and arrogance and narcissism of this judge. He has been put in his place. The Supreme Court has put back in order the constitutional norms and enforced the Alien Enemies Act and allowed the president, as presidents have for literally 240 years, allowed the president to utilize the Alien Enemies Act to keep Americans safe. This means, number one, that everyone who's been deported already and in that Salvadoran prison, they're there. That's the policy. They're gone. Any person who had been targeted, identified, and apprehended by the Trump administration under the Department of Homeland Security, who for one reason or another was in a temporary holding pattern because of this judge's orders, because let's be clear here, despite all of the histrionics that you've heard from the media, there has been no constitutional crisis. Well, what if Trump defies a law? Well, he hasn't defied an order. But we spent 3 weeks. What if Trump defies a federal judge? What if Trump... No. Everything's fine. There is no constitutional crisis. If there is any constitutional crisis here and any breach of the separation of powers, the Supreme Court just confirmed that breach of separation of powers was on the head of Judge Boasberg. He overreached his power. The president did not. So all of those people who had been in temporary holding pattern waiting for the Supreme Court decision, they will now be deported. But here's the part that Trump has barely talked about but needs to be said. If you're in this country illegally and you think you've agreed with Rachel Maddow and Joe Scarborough and you think that you can just wait this out and don't worry, the Supreme Court will decide for you and that Trump is acting like a dictator and he can't do this, you wake up this morning saying, oh, Trump can do this. Trump can do this. I've been in the country illegally. Joe Biden let me in, or Barack Obama let me in, and I thought that they were going to protect me. I thought that was going to get my citizenship. I thought I was going to be able to stay for as long as I want. Not anymore. There used to be a phrase called self-deportation. Mitt Romney ran on it, but he wasn't a very good campaigner, so he couldn't send the message. Everyone in this country illegally who now knows that they cannot stay here illegally, they cannot work here illegally, they're not going to get Social Security benefits and Medicare and Medicaid benefits anymore because the whistle is being blown on that, and that's being exposed. All of those things that you came here for, you will not be able to get. They're all going to start going home on their own, Julie.
Yep.
Suddenly, all of those asylum claims are going to disappear. Suddenly, the wait time for these asylum judges is going to go down from 8 years to maybe 8 weeks because we're not going to get that flood. Suddenly, people are now learning that they can't cross the border illegally without having an encounter with an ICE agent and sent back home packing. Everything has changed in less than 100 days, and you're going to start seeing people leave on their own accord because they're not here legally. And that's the power of this now. Enforcing the law actually has a hell of an effect. When you find out that police and district attorneys are not going to arrest or prosecute anybody for shoplifting, guess what starts happening? People start shoplifting. And when you find out that the federal U.S. government does not enforce their border and does not deport people who are here illegally, suddenly people start coming here and staying here illegally. Those days are over. And now we're going to start getting back to regular law and order. It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. Well put, Larry.
Thank you. Nothing else?
No, you're going to yell at me because I don't want to go over.
No, you got one more. I'll give you a minute. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'll just say that this is, again, an example of what he ran on. He ran on this. People voted for this. And you're going to see the hysterical white lady boomers out there doing these marches. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned suburban white ladies. You said boomers, but let's talk about a certain Gen X white suburban lady that everyone's sort of whispering about, Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah, let's do talk.
What's going on there?
I don't know. I don't understand. She sided with the minority, all women. The four
All
women on the
women.
court all stood together. And I will be honest, I have not read the dissent yet, so I don't understand the reasoning at this point. But it is a disappointment. She also, I believe, on the ruling on USAID funding, she on that one as well. She ruled to resume funding. Now that was a complicated matter. It's certainly forgivable because it was sort of for work that was it was sort of work already done. You know,
Right.
you're not
You'd
going to
already
pay the
committed the money,
gardener
the work
after
was
he
done.
pulled
Yeah.
all the weeds, you know, kind of thing. But again,
she gave us a
there's-
historic vote on Dobbs, and
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
we can't expect anything more from that. I can only go back to what you were saying about the 19th Amendment. Ann Coulter didn't go quite as far as you, Julie Gunlock. So there you go. You're more extreme than Ann Coulter. But I will say Ann Coulter has been saying things about Amy Coney Barrett for years now. She's not a fan. And last night after this decision, this is what she tweeted. She said, "All the ladies, Republicans, please stop voting for, electing, or nominating women for anything. Will you never learn?" So she still wants women to vote. Just stop voting for women.
I don't know.
It's 5:23.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Can't interrupt a good guitar lick. Good morning, it's O'Connor and Company, and we are loaded for bear. Coming up at 7:05, Gordon Shang. We'll talk about how all these tariffs are really about China, what China's doing in reaction, and where this is headed. 7:35, Nick Minnock, WJLA, on Steve Descano's latest deceptions. And at 8:05, Frederick County Sheriff Chuck Jenkins. It's Larry O'Connor, alongside Julie Gunlock, it's cool you're matching the music. I didn't notice that you're sort of dressed up like one of those background dancers in a late 80s heavy metal music video from MTV.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, no. Julie's hair is all teased out and like 3 feet high, and I've never seen you wear so much leather. This is really impressive.
Good Lord, you're nuts. Good morning.
Were you a solid gold dancer back in the day?
I might have loved the Solid Gold dancers. I might have watched them.
I might have watched this.
I never was one. No.
And not for Solid Gold was perfect because, like, you had the dancers for guys like me, and you had Andy Gibb for gals like you.
Right. I like the dancers, though.
It's a great combo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Steve Descano. Steve Descano is the Commonwealth's attorney in Fairfax County. Let's see. Yesterday we talked about how the Fairfax County School Board has decided the parents have no say in explicit and activist-oriented sexual instruction for any of your children starting in kindergarten, right? Remember that?
Right.
Those were good times. Yeah. We also explained to you how a school board member is currently being charged with allegedly embezzling 6 figures from his company, and he used it on strip clubs and personal luxury items. But you know, he's in a bisexual relationship, so that makes him the perfect school board member. So what else can go wrong in Fairfax County? Well, let's look at the guy who's supposed to put bad guys behind bars. Take it away, Nick Minnock, Channel 7. Here's cut 1.
In January, Wilmer Osmani Ramoski-Roan was charged with strangling, abducting, and assaulting his ex-wife. That's 2 felonies and a misdemeanor. He faced up to 15 to 16 years in prison. But since Fairfax County Commonwealth's Attorney Steve Descano's office cut a plea deal, Ramoski-Roan was released from jail after 2 months, according to court documents in the Fairfax County Sheriff's Office. ICE told 7 News that Ramoski-Roan is illegally present in the U.S. and that he was previously deported twice. Descano's website says, wherever possible, Steve will make charging and plea decisions that limit or avoid immigration consequences. I asked Steve Descano's office why they dropped the felony strangulation charge. In a statement, Descano's office claimed that the outcome in this case was based primarily on the victim's wishes and that she wanted to minimize the impact on his record and avoid a felony conviction. Descano's office says this agreement achieved the outcomes that the victim wanted.
All right, now this is, you heard Nick, of course, brilliant journalist, lays out the story. Here's a guy in the country illegally, has been apprehended and deported twice before, apprehended this time for menacing and abusing and strangling his ex-wife. Steve Descano, I have no doubt, if you look at his campaign website, ran on, we must protect women. We must, I'm the best friend of women, suburban. All you suburban housewives in Fairfax County, are you listening to this? This woman was an abused wife, an abused ex-wife, had been abducted and strangled by her menacing, violent ex-husband, who was in the country illegally and had been in the country illegally multiple times and deported. But Steve Descano claims that, hey, listen, this is a domestic situation. The ex-wife begged us to go easy on him. It's complicated. The ex-wife didn't want us to throw the book at him. The ex-wife didn't want him deported by ICE, so we took it easy on him. We let him off on a plea deal because that's what the ex-wife wanted, the victim in this case. All right? Now let's hear from the victim, because unlike Steve Descano and his office, Nick Minnock actually talked to the victim.
Right.
Take a listen.
I called the victim to see if that was true. The victim told me it wasn't true. We distorted her voice because she asked not to be identified. The victim said Ramoski Roan is dangerous. She said she has 2 young children, and if she dies, who is going to take care of them? The victim said Ramoski Roan pulled a knife on her and strangled her, and that 6 years ago, he pointed a gun at her. The victim said Ramoski Roan's attorney asked her to agree to drop charges against him, but she refused. The victim said she was told Ramoski Roan would serve 15 to 16 years in prison, and she agreed with that because she feared for her safety. The victim said at one point Descano's prosecutor wanted Ramoski Roan to serve 1 month, but she disagreed. More than anything, the victim told me that she's surprised at Descano's prosecutor because she says Ramoski Roan got off easy. Now, I requested an interview with Descano. His office did not grant an interview, and they doubled down on saying this is what the victim wanted. I informed them we spoke to the victim, who is disputing what they're saying, and I requested another interview with Descano. Reporting with Roger Rodriguez, Nick Minnock, 7 News.
There you go. That's the
cruelty.
truth.
The cruelty of Steve Descano.
The cruelty, and then to lie about it and maintain that lie.
Yeah, they don't have any problem lying about it to save their political skin. Politics is primary here in Northern Virginia, in Fairfax.
Yeah, well, I'd love to hear from all of those liberal, white, suburban women, hate has no home here, signs in the front yard, who voted and support these policies. So what do you say to this woman? This woman who is in fear for her life, fear for her children's lives? She is terrified right now. She is an abuse victim, and Steve Descano put the desires of his own political will, because he hates Trump, hates the federal law against illegal immigration, and would rather have an attempted murderer walk the streets right now, continuing to menace his ex-wife and children, than allow ICE to deport this person. And by the way, in Fairfax County, they'll still tell you that they have no sanctuary policies in that county.
You know, Larry, we have talked quite a bit about liberals in the D.C. region and just what they will sacrifice in order to further these progressive goals. And many of the people who vote and who have money do not have to live with these realities.
That's right.
And
That's
often
right.
the victims are women like this mother who has to really deal with a prosecutor who will not act in this case to protect her. But the rich, the wealthy white woman who is voting for Steve Descano and keeping Steve Descano, she doesn't have to deal with this. She doesn't care.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's why the Hispanic vote for Trump grew in huge numbers, because they're the victims. Their neighborhoods are the ones who are getting devastated. But you're right. The rich, white, educated, suburban woman who puts her kids in private school and never actually has to face this terror.
That's right.
They feel great about themselves every night when they go to bed. It's 5:44. Unbelievable journalism here that I really want to point out for you. You know, we're not just always criticizing the legacy corporate-owned media here, Julie. When they do good work, they deserve kudos, right?
Yep.
And boy, oh boy, the New York Times, unbelievable, breaking, investigative piece. I don't know how many people they put on this or how long they've been digging into it. apparently, I find this story hard to believe, but you got to trust the New York Times, the old gray lady, right? All the news that fits the print, right, Julie?
That's right.
Are you ready for this? Brace yourself.
ready.
This is a blockbuster. This is a game changer. The New York Times has found evidence suggesting, see, they're not going all the way out on a limb here. They're not saying this
build-up.
happened. They're just, there's evidence that suggests this, all right? So let's just be clear. Keep an open mind. There could be any explanation. The New York Times has found evidence. What's the date here? April 8th, 2025. 2025, Julie.
What could
The
it
New
be?
York Times. The New York Times has found evidence suggesting that former President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, was acting as a foreign agent as early as the Obama administration.
What?
Oh, my
What?
God, I cannot believe this. I am dumbfounded and stunned by this. Absolutely blown away. Apparently, he would go on foreign trips with his dad when his dad was vice president. Yes. I mean, at the time, I just thought, well, this is just a loving father and his troubled son, right?
Yes.
Well, when he was in those foreign countries like China, Ukraine, etc., he would go off and make business meetings with these big corrupt government agents who thought they were currying favor with the vice president.
Larry, I'm sorry, but I think this has really gone too far. They really need to leave the 60-year-old kid alone. I thought presidential children were off limits, Larry.
Leave the kids out of it. He's just a troubled little boy. The New York Times. Oh, they are really Johnny on the spot here. Good for them.
Yeah,
Good
well,
for
they better
them
get
for
ready.
finally digging
You know they're
in.
going to get awards for this, Larry.
I smell a Pulitzer.
I mean, they're already dress shopping.
For the ceremony.
That's right.
Yes, and even some of the women.
Oh, dear.
As Ed Morrissey's headline at Hot Air, New York Times, by golly, Hunter did try to sell influence, and the White House covered it up. Holy smokes. Who could have seen that coming? Hunter Biden, I kid you, this is an article just written this week. Hunter Biden sought assistance from the U.S. government for a potentially lucrative energy project in Italy while his father was vice president, according to newly released records and interviews.
Newly released. My God.
You know,
Shameless.
the New York Times once
Didn't
in a
you write a book
while
about that?
should, while they're riding the subway into work there on 44th Street in Manhattan, or no, they're on 8th Avenue now. As they're riding the subway into work, they should grab a New York Post and read Miranda Devine's Spyline.
There you go.
See.
Or listen to us.
Or listen, because Lord knows New York is not giving them any good talk radio. And yes, I did write a book. Thanks for asking. It's called
Yes.
Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. And there's a whole lot in here about all the things the corrupt corporate media ignored during the Biden's presidency and about how the Biden
Next up.
administration violated our First Amendment by silencing those of us who were telling you the truth about these things.
Next up, the New York Times is going to break the story that COVID came from a lab.
Next up, New York Times denies the science. It's 5:53.